Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Rita Cosby Show. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Rita Cosby Show Weekend Review. Feisty, fearless, and fair. She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Rita made, nothing can come between us.
Breaking news, WABC.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, big breaking news. Only hours ago, Mayor Zoran Mondani was sworn into office. It's an incredible moment. And within hours, he has already done some sweeping executive orders, many of them taking swipes at Eric Adams. And if you listen to what he said during his inaugural address on this very cold January 1st in New York, it is freezing outside. If you listen to what he's saying, he's not mincing words. The one thing I'll give him credit for is he said he was going to do certain things. He said he stood for certain things, and he is a true believer, and he's not wavering. He said that he is sticking to the policies. It doesn't matter how radical people call him. He will continue to believe in everything he campaigned on. And that, of course, means free buses, free childcare. He went after the rich. In fact, they were chanting tax the rich at one point in the inauguration. And then also, I didn't really hear anything about cracking down on anti-Semitism. I didn't hear anything about public safety. Shows where his priorities are. And when he talked about discrimination, he kept bringing up examples about Palestinians that he says experience discrimination in New York. I'm sure there have been cases of discrimination against Palestinians and others in New York, but somehow we left out Jewish discrimination, anti-Semitism. He left that out. So this guy clearly is a true believer, and I believe he's going to be true trouble for New York and for America. First off, here is what he said, and this just sums up everything about Zoran Mondani. Sadly, I have to say it. The mayor of New York. Here is cut 14, and he proclaimed that he will stick to what he believes and he will follow through, and that's not good.
I was elected as a democratic socialist, and I will govern as a democratic socialist.
I was elected as a democratic socialist, and I will govern as a democratic socialist. That's trouble, because if you look at some of the policies of democratic socialists, they're all anti-Israel. They are all anti-Semitic. And they are all, I believe, very divisive and very dangerous. So what are your thoughts tonight? If you saw the inauguration, his public one, of course, he had the private one under the old City Hall subway. That took place at midnight. But the public one, there was a big turnout. He's a good speaker. I'll give him that. He knows how to deliver a line or a good speech. But I also believe this is going to be very, very dangerous for New York. Later on this hour, I'm going to play some of the interviews that we did earlier today, because we talked with Hank Scheinkoff, for example, a great Democratic political pollster. He's done so many races in New York and around this country. And he proclaimed today the beginning of the end of New York. That's how clear he is about this man. He's a Democrat, but he is deeply concerned about Zoran Mondani, as I believe all of us should be. Also, the New York Democratic Socialist leaders, remember, he says he was elected as one and he's going to govern as one. Well, they are already coming out and saying that they are ready to wage war for Zoran Mondani against, quote, corrupt Albany. the New York DSA co-chair, saying Zoran's agenda needs fighters in Albany, and that's why we're running a socialist slate for the state legislature this year. So they're feeling emboldened. They're feeling passionate. They're feeling like they got their guy in the biggest city in America, and that this is only the beginning. And that was the message I took from today after I was hearing AOC, who was speaking. She's the one who did the opening remarks. She got a rousing applause. Bernie Sanders, also, who swore him in, he got a rousing applause when he spoke also. And some of the other speakers were just downright crazy, I think. I mean, it was stunning. It was one of the most defiant, wild inauguration, I think, moments that I've ever seen. And I'm still going, this man is going to be the mayor and now is the mayor of New York City. So as I mentioned, he didn't talk about attacks on Jewish citizens. New York is the biggest Jewish population outside of Israel, and there certainly have been a lot of anti-Semitic attacks. Somehow he left that out. And yet every reference was about an Arab, about Muslims, a whole bunch of different things. Take a listen. Here's a little bit of Zoran Mandani, one of his examples in his speech.
They will be young people in cramped Marble Hill apartments where the walls shake when the subway passes. They will be black homeowners in St. Albans, whose homes represent a physical testament to triumph over decades of lesser paid labor and redlining. They will be Palestinian New Yorkers in Bay Ridge, who will no longer have to contend with a politics that speaks of universalism and then makes them the exception.
I'm sure there are Palestinians in Bay Ridge. But guess what? There have been a lot of anti-Semitic attacks all over the New York area, all over the 5 boroughs. So why didn't he address that? Somehow he left that out, intentionally, of course. There's no doubt. This guy is not going to be a mayor for all New Yorkers. He's going to be a mayor for the New Yorkers that he likes. And I'm really worried, even more so, what's going to happen with protests and things in our city, because I don't think this guy's going to tell any of them to stand down, depending what they're protesting. If they're protesting a mosque, he'll suddenly say stand down. If they're protesting a synagogue, he's going to say, do you need support? We'll send more to help you. This guy is a true believer. And as I mentioned, there were other speakers there today. Let's not forget the imam. And all he talked about was immigrants and how terrible ICE is. Take a listen.
Let justice not be a slogan, but a structure. Let equity not be a promise, but a practice. Let policy be shaped by compassion and budgets reflective of our values. Protect the most vulnerable amongst us, our children and elders, our immigrants and asylum seekers, our unhoused neighbors, our workers, our artists, our caregivers, and the students who keep this city alive. Heal what has been broken by neglect and greed. Soften hearts hardened by fear. Replace cynicism with courage and despair with collective hope.
Does that make you hopeful? It doesn't make me hopeful. And then there was this guy, Amadou Lee. This is interesting. He and 2 others were the ones who were involved in swearing in the public advocate, Jumaane Williams, because the New York comptroller got sworn in first. And then you saw Jumaane Williams, the public advocate, and then came Zoran Mandani, all at Mandani's inauguration ceremony. And this guy, Amadou Lee, he and 2 others were introduced as folks who've had problems with ICE, who've been essentially abused by ICE. That was the theme. So here's Amadou Lee talking a little bit about some of the other folks that were up there on the stage and what they all have in common.
Every day, thousands of New Yorkers face the fear I once did without the spotlight. They fear being abducted, detained, and disappeared. With me today is Miss Aissatou Diallo and Mr. Perez. Miss Diallo has lived in the United States for over 20 years. This past Thanksgiving, she was abducted by ICE at LaGuardia Airport. She was shackled and detained after decades of building a life here. Her freedom was suddenly stripped away.
Unbelievable. So she was shackled at LaGuardia Airport, taken illegally, kidnapped. This is the language. These are the people that were on the stage at the inauguration for Zoran Mandani and his administration. I said it last night. Buckle up. Boy, you got to put 2 seatbelts on for this one. This guy is a true believer. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Robert in Brooklyn on line 2. Robert, what did you make of his inaugural speech?
Well, he mentioned, quote, we will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism, unquote. And as you pointed out, he also said, quote, I was elected as a Democrat socialist. I will govern as a Democrat socialist, unquote. They played the socialist anthem, Bread and Roses. And, you know, he gave an executive order. His first executive order was to wipe out all the stuff that Eric Adams did when he was indicted. And what I really don't like about that is that there's a principle, you're innocent until proven guilty. Eric Adams was a good person, and he was made guilty because of an indictment. It's just horrible what they did to him. But in terms of...
And by the way, Robert, I'll let you go on, but I just want to tell everybody, because I'm glad you spotlighted that. The fact that he signed these executive orders, and he said he's going to revoke all orders issued by Eric Adams after September 26, 2024, which was the day he was slapped with federal corruption charges, to, quote, this is Mandani's words, have a fresh start for his incoming administration. I mean, for me, first of all, I find that very petty. It shows to me this is a petty, vindictive guy. And Eric Adams has been quite cordial about Mandani. We talked with him earlier. I'm going to play some of that interview later on in the show tonight too, Robert. But he has been very, I think, very restrained in a highly dignified way. I would not say that Eric Adams is out there like sandblasting Mandani, and he would have every right to. And just like you said, I believe he was politically focused on, politically charged by the Biden administration. So many of these things. And Mandani should know that too. And yet, like to me, it's such a disgrace. He invites the guy to his inauguration because Adams had discussions, as you guys know, from the big interview that John Katz and I did with Eric Adams earlier this week. That's when he announced that he was indeed going to go because he had a nice talk with Mandani. So what does Mandani do? As soon as his first thing in office, rescinds, all these executive orders tied to Eric Adams, like a slap in the face to Eric Adams. And to me, that shows to me a very petty, very partisan. And to me, it says a lot about his character. And it makes me think even less than I already do about him. Robert, your thoughts?
Okay, well, now, in terms of the MAGA people, Trump and the MAGA supporters, what needs to happen is issues of affordability have to be addressed.
Hang on. But Robert, my question to you before you get to that, my question to you is, don't you think that's petty? Don't you think that's a low life to do that? Yeah, the guy, Adams has been nothing but classy to Mandani. Mandani doesn't deserve it, but I applaud Adams for doing it. And then he slaps him in the face on the way out on his day, the first action.
No, that was terrible, lack of class. And also he did the same thing with Governor Cuomo when he won. He says, well, I'm never going to have to deal with you again. Very, very, very rude, very, very crude.
Cocky.
I just want to mention something.
Cocky, arrogant, all those words. Go ahead, Robert.
But I just want to mention what did Trump and his supporters have to focus on: the affordability, healthcare, and also immigration. It's not enough just to deport people. There's over 2 million people, most of which self-deported, because even if you get 10 million out, there's still like 10, 15 million who are still here. What Trump is going to have to do is he's going to have to get immigrants to come to the country who love the country, because right now Trump barely won against Kamala Harris, and it doesn't look good. He has to start we have to learn from them. We have to learn from them. Whatever they do with their tactics, we have to learn if they have good tactics. And the immigration, they weaponized it to try to get people to vote for Democrats. Well, the Republicans have to get immigrants who love this country. A lot of Christians are being persecuted throughout the world. Many of them might make great citizens in this country. People who are going to support the First Amendment, who hate Hamas, who support Israel. We need to get people here who we want. That's not people who are going to help their agenda. And that's one thing that Barack Obama did, is he transformed America with immigration, and it was even worse under Biden, which is like the third term of Obama. And one last point I just want to mention, you once had Olivia Reingold on to talk about Mamdani, and she had a recent article, you might want to get her on. She talked about the divide with some Jewish families, that there were some young Jewish people voting for this horrible Mamdani. And she said the biggest common denominator was they went to private schools like Horace Mann and Poly Prep, because the kids are being indoctrinated. You mentioned a few nights ago about they're going to teach the kids about January 6th. They're going to indoctrinate them about their side, which is totally wrong. You mentioned about people being shackled. What about Peter Navarro? They shackled Peter Navarro. You don't hear them talking about that, but they're going to defend some illegal. I don't know the specific case, but this person was shackled, but you don't hear them talking about Peter Navarro. No, this is a war, and we have to learn from their tactics.
And Robert, by the way, I agree with you that that they totally play the warfare game. There is no question about it. And I think, sadly, based on what we heard today and what we've heard, many Democrats say for the last, especially few weeks and few months and even few years against President Trump, this year it's an election year for the New York governor. It's an election year for the midterms, for the keeping the Senate and the House. It's going to be, I think, sadly, a really, really vicious verbal year. And you're right. The Democrats, I think, are going to throw everything against Republicans, anything they can do to smear and disdain and do whatever they can. Great points, Robert. Buckle up, I keep saying. And we'll take your calls, more of you, after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show.
Happy New Year from Bulova Watches. Be impeccably dressed in 2026 with a Bulova Frank Sinatra timepiece on your wrist, incorporating vintage designs with the iconic elements of the legendary performer. Mr. Sinatra's classic fedora and his signature are some of the standout details. The collection pays tribute to Bulova and Frank Sinatra's relationship dating back to the 1950s. Mr. S wore Bulova watches throughout his life. They sponsored the Sinatra Show. Today, Bulova honors Mr. S with watches named after some of his most beloved songs: Summer Wind, Young at Heart, Fly Me to the Moon. These timepieces come in both self-winding automatic or quartz movements, beautifully presented in special edition packaging inspired by a record player. Bulova Frank Sinatra watches have a classic elegance like Mr. Sinatra himself. The full collection is available at Macy's and Macy's.com. Frank Sinatra's music and styling transcends generations. Use up that gift card that you received this past holiday season and get yourself a Bulova watch. See the beautiful full collection at Macy's.
You work decades for your savings. Don't let a policy decision wipe it out overnight. Rising debt, bank stress, the threat of a weaker dollar are all forcing smart investors to take action. Sanctuary Metals helps Americans move part of their IRA or 401ks into real physical gold, tax-deferred and penalty-free. Protect your retirement. Call 800-801-6487 or just go to sanctuarymetals.com for your free retirement defense guide. That's sanctuarymetals.com.
The Tunnel to Towers Foundation honors the courage and sacrifice of America's heroes. Heroes like United States Army Lieutenant Colonel Christy Rabitz. Christy served our country with unwavering dedication for 20 years as a combat nurse. After a 6-year battle with service-related cancer, Christy's life was tragically cut short. She leaves behind her husband, Stephen, and their 2 children, Jack and Stella. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the Rabitz family's home. Help more families like Christy's. Donate $11 a month and amplify your impact by donating your car or land. Go to T2T.org.
Think back to the last time you were in nature. What comes to mind? Hiking through a lush forest, floating on a lazy river, or perhaps watching a vibrant sunset on a beach full of glistening plastic bottles and food wrappers. Unfortunately, this isn't a joke. Here in the U.S., we generate the most plastic waste in the world, with 70% of it ending up in landfills. And by the time you're done listening to this ad, more than a dump truck's worth of plastic will have made it into the ocean. Plastic has become a useful part of our everyday lives, but it's polluting the air, water, and soil that all life needs to survive. This is a human problem that can be solved with human action, but it's going to take all of us, from individuals to businesses to governments and everyone in between. Help create a cleaner future for both people and nature. Visit wwf.earth/plastics.
When it comes to vaping, the truth can get clouded. So let's make it clear. Vaping is not safe for kids, teens, or young adults. It's just not.
Because vaping can put microscopic particles into your lungs.
And dangerous things like metals and volatile organic compounds into your body.
And nicotine, the same highly addictive substance found in regular cigarettes.
Nicotine can harm a person's brain development through their mid-20s.
Affecting learning, memory, attention, and impulse control, and priming the brain for other addictions.
Vaping products also come in kid-friendly flavors that can make them appealing to youth.
And many kids also use other drugs, like marijuana, in vaping devices.
With appealing flavors, high nicotine levels, and lots of promotion on social media,
many kids think vaping is harmless, but it's not.
So talk to your kids about the risks of vaping, because when you talk, they hear you.
For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
You can't escape a traffic jam. Know what else you can't escape? Seasonal allergies. And you might think you can avoid that coffee stain until... Oh, really? You can't escape a lot of things in life, but you can escape prediabetes. Prediabetes captures 1 in 3 adults. There are usually no signs of prediabetes. In fact, most people don't even know they have it. But with early diagnosis, you can change the outcome and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Take action by taking the 1-minute risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. You might not be able to escape having this song stuck in your head, but you can escape prediabetes. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org today. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
This is the Rita Cosby Show Weekend Review. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
Always play the best music here on the Rita Cosby Show. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Norm in Brooklyn on line 2. Norm, what did you think?
What did I think? Rita, it is the beginning of the end. What I thought March 13, 1938. Now, why does that date illumine my life? I'm an Austrian and an American. I hold dual citizenship. And that's the date that Hitler annexed Austria. And everything began to change.
Wow.
Okay?
Do you really, Norm, do you really feel... Norm, you know what I'm going to do, actually, because we love you, Norm, and it's January 1st. Will you stick with us, because we got a hard break, and I want to continue with you, Norm, after the break. But I want to hear, because that's a really powerful message, and we love you, Norm. We'll continue with your calls, guys.
The Rita Cosby Show, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Rita Cosby Show Weekend Review. Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Tinley Park, Illinois, where police and paramedics came to the aid of a resident who had become trapped inside her home after suffering an apparent stroke. Police responded for a well-being check at a home. The caller had told dispatch that the local resident hadn't arrived at work that day, wasn't answering her phone or doorbell, and her vehicle was still in the parking lot. Mail and packages were outside the front door, and the TV could be heard playing very loudly from inside. So police said they made multiple attempts to get inside that woman's residence, tried to contact family members, yet to no avail. Fearing the victim needed urgent medical attention, officers requested a sergeant, quickly staged an ambulance to arrive, and then forced entry into the residence. Now, once inside, officers indeed found the homeowner lying on the floor, suffering from an apparent stroke. The officers immediately had her taken to the hospital, and where she thankfully underwent a successful surgery and was thankful to be alive, thanks to the great men and women in blue. And obviously, thanks to that caring resident who said she didn't show up for work, wasn't around, and called police to check on her neighbor. How beautiful, and what an important, powerful story, especially as we kick off the new year. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Norm on line 2 again. Sorry, Norm, we had a hard break, so go ahead.
No worries.
You
My
said
pleasure.
something really important. Go ahead.
My thoughts is that first thing, I can't believe we are in this position. I can't believe. Well, why do I say I can't believe we are in this position? I'm dual citizen. I would say, can such a mayor ever become the mayor of Vienna? And I'm going to say, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because the people there, they kind of, this is for the home of the Holocaust. Many of those people, they remember. There's a collective memory of it. It's only in this, stupid city where you have people who have, they have no memory, nothing of the past. Nothing of the past. And you have certainly the Jewish community in Vienna. Certainly they ain't voting for a Mamdani.
Yeah, okay. It astounds me that any Jewish individual would vote for Mamdani. By the way, did you hear, Norm, that also today, Katie Wilson, I believe, got sworn in of Seattle. And she's not to the, she hasn't, as far as I know, she hasn't made some of those really vile anti-Semitic comments, but she has been a defund the policer. She's definitely a democratic socialist. So you sadly, and she kind of even, says she's fascinated by Mamdani, that he's sort of her idol. So, so it is scary, especially when you hear AOC and Bernie today, who are at his inauguration, talking about essentially almost sort of part of a national trend, that Mamdani sort of kicking off this national trend. And I found it chilling, Norm. I'm glad you did too.
And all the places that, the Bernie Sanders, the AOCs, they're enablers. Okay, there were people like that during the Third Reich. I mean, there were people like that in Austria. There were people like that in Germany. These are like these people enable the Mamdani people to wreak havoc. Look, I don't believe we're going to be shot down in the streets. I don't believe that's going to happen. What I do believe is there will be a general atmosphere of lawlessness. Okay, and in that atmosphere of lawlessness, similar to what we had during when COVID was here. Okay, and because of that, you're going to start to see things like swastikas on delis again, and you're going to start to see scratched Jewish stars on synagogues and things like that. The things that were going on, the things that are going on all over the place now. I mean, I just in Brooklyn, I'm passing. I pass up Kings Highway, and I noticed on a building in graffiti. F, they use the full word Israel.
Yep.
Okay.
And Norm, I think you hit it on the head. I think you're absolutely correct that indeed we will see a lot more of those things. And I also worry. I mean, remember when that protest happened where it blocked parishioners going into the synagogue? And this was before Christmas. This was during Hanukkah. And what happened? Well, one of Mamdani's aides basically said that the people shouldn't have been worshiping at the temple, as opposed to saying, we're really sorry, that should never be happening and that wouldn't happen under us. That's not what they said. So I agree with you. I think we're going to see a lot of very dangerous lines being crossed. I think we're going to see a lot of these protests. And like you said, I think a lot of those pro-Hamas protests, anti-Israel protests, anti-Jewish protests, also some really vile graffiti. And I also think we're going to sadly see a mayor who is not going to condemn them. He's going to say, sorry, that's free speech, or don't do it again. Wink, wink. I think we're in a dangerous place. And I think you aptly describe a lot of what may be ahead, which is why good New Yorkers have to stand up and say this cannot be tolerated. This is not appropriate. And I'm worried that he's going to be worse than I thought. After watching today and listening to some of the speakers, I'm really concerned. I'm also optimistic because New York is such a great city. It's resilient and there's so many good people in this city and they will not allow it to fall apart. But I think he and his people will try. And that really saddens me because I love this city. And of course, I want the best for New York. But I think some of the values that I saw portrayed there, and it was a very divisive speech, not just on the Jewish issue, Norm, but also on, tax the rich. They were chanting. And he kept talking about corporate greed. It seems so out of touch. There are a lot of people who hire a lot of people in New York. And I didn't see anything that he said today that would inspire a big business owner to stay in New York. He kept saying he's going to raise taxes. He vilified them, vilified anybody with success, vilified anybody who wasn't Muslim, it seemed. It really was, I found it a shocking speech. And I found this moment a shocking moment, Norm. So, boy, we're in for a crazy 2026, Norm, but good people have to stick together. And there are a lot of good people in New York and it's a great city and it has to stay that way. Norm, thank you very much. And Norm, you talked about also what Hank Scheinkoff said, where he said he believes this is the beginning of the end of New York. And I wanted to play this interview. He did it with me and John Katz. We also had Mike Sapercone with us too, former NYPD detective. And we were talking earlier on Katz and Cosby. We talked to the great Democrat. Remember, he is a Democratic political consultant. He's done many campaigns in New York, around America, around the world, highly respected in Republican, Democratic, and independent circles. And Hank Scheinkoff said, this is a dramatic, very dire moment for New York. Take a listen. Here's the interview.
Katz and Cosby on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Now we're going to Hank Scheinkoff, the great political guru. Hank, your reaction to Mondani, his speech today, and the other speakers. You probably just heard from Bruce Blakeman, and Bruce was saying no reference to anti-Semitism, and yet they also double down on Democratic Socialists of America, which is so virulent, anti-Israel, anti-Jewish. Your thoughts?
And anti-cop, for that matter, by the way, I might add.
Yep.
Which means they're anti-order and anti-democracy. So the word of the idea that they have something to do, the socialists have something to do with democracy is entirely, completely wrong. So, look, why is anyone surprised by what the now mayor had to say? I don't understand. He told you what he was going to do. He told you what he was going to say. He did exactly what he said he would do. Why are people surprised? I mean, what's the big whoop here? He's exactly the person that he said he was going to be when he rose up and when he won that race. Simple. I don't know what people are so surprised about.
It's interesting, Hank. You are right. And I said it. I remember you, me, and John, we were talking early on. I used the phrase, he's a true believer. Like, to me, like what I saw was somebody who was very anti-Semitic today. I heard no remorse. I just heard a very defiant speech. And even the speakers, even before him, some of the comments from the imam, some of the comments from the other people, and I didn't hear anything. Like at one point, I think there was a reference to a temple, but then everything else was Palestinians who've been targeted, Palestinians who've been this, speaking in Arabic. I mean,
It's nonsense. It never happened. It's idiotic. I haven't seen a lot of Palestinians in Borough Park have been beaten up. I mean, let's be real about this. This is a warning to the Jewish community and to the Catholic community in New York City, because it always begins with the Jews, but it never ends with the Jews. The simple fact is in Bethlehem, which was now part of the Palestinian Authority, before it became part of the Palestinian Authority, since then, the number of Catholics have declined by 90%. So if you want to listen to the rhetoric you heard today, and tell yourself fables, you're entitled to do that. The reality is people of goodwill now have to organize to ensure that this mayor and those around him do not get out of control. He is with tenants this evening after that speech in Brooklyn. He's got a new office of tenant protection facility, which is fine, where they've targeted one company and they go after them. The good news is not a lot of Jews in the company, but the beginning of the end of New York has already begun. The problem here is he'll have 6 months in which he can get away with it until he strikes the budget on July 1st at 12:01 a.m. Once that budget struck, he's responsible for everything that happens. And it's going to be a heck of a time. And Kathy Hochul, the governor, has already collapsed. So we don't have to worry about that. She's already in his side because she's got an election coming up. She's got a primary she's worried about. There's a legislature that's more like him than not. I mean, the state is in very serious trouble.
You know, Hank, I just want to repeat what you said because you just said a really powerful statement. The beginning of the end of New York has begun. I didn't recognize the New York he talked about today, and I agree with you. And it's really, really troubling and deeply concerning. You know, and meanwhile, his speech was all, we're here for all New York. And talked about even AOC, who was before him. She gave this reference to sort of, fury and barbarism and all these other things. You know, if you don't agree with us, essentially, you're the radical. It was shocking to me. And I found it very divisive, very excluding key people in New York. Like you just said, either you're with us or that's it. And it was a very defiant speech too. Even the speakers, I don't think I've ever seen an inauguration like that.
Well, it is, it's kind of like, again, what did people expect? He's doing exactly what he said he would do. He's going to make it faster for JP Morgan to move more people out of here. You know, where are the entry level jobs that he's going to destroy? And he's right. You know, look, there are social inequities. There is no question about it. There have always been. And decent mayors have tried to end them by creating jobs, pathways to education. It's just, there are things to be done and there are things to be changed. But what he talked about today wasn't about things to be done and things to be changed. It's things to be radicalized and things to stop social mobility. How? By ensuring that people remain in place so long as they can fight. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a real problem.
Yeah, it's a real problem. Hank, we love you. Thank you for always supporting New York and putting New York first, and for speaking out too. And I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot this year. Happy New Year, and let's pray for New York and pray for America, Hank. Yeah, very powerful conversation with Hank Scheinkoff there. Again, you heard what he said. The beginning of the end of New York has begun. It's not a more powerful comment than that. Let's go to Nick in Virginia on line 2. Nick, you're here on the Rita Cosby Show on January 1st of 2026.
Oh, Happy New Year, Rita, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I guess so. You know what? I'm ever the optimist, so I'm continuing to stay optimistic,
well,
but it is troubling. There's no doubt.
You're a better man than I am, Gunga Din. Anyway, Rita, I noticed that Mr. Mandami took his oath of office with his hand on the Quran.
Yes.
Now, what happened to the Bible?
Well, and he has a choice. You know, he's a Muslim. He's a devout Muslim. And in fact, on one of them, I think he had 2 Qurans on top of each other. One of them was one from the New York Public Library. It was sort of a historic one. And then the other one was his grandfather's that he had. But they have a choice of whatever they want to put their hand on. And, you know, others have done that. I think Ilhan Omar did it. Rashida Tlaib did it in Congress. And Keith Ellison, who is the attorney general there in Minnesota, where they're having a lot of problems with all the fraud stuff. But he also famously put his hand on the Quran. So, yeah, you're right. But it's par for the course with him, right?
But it's breaking American tradition. And also, I have the question, what happens if we get someone that's an atheist or agnostic? What are they going to put their hand on?
Right, that's interesting, right.
A computer screen with Wikipedia on the screen? Right. That's probably what they believe in. You know, that's their Bible.
No, but you're right. I hear what you're saying. I mean, and to me, it was not surprising that he put his hand on the Quran. I remember when there were kind of rumors that he might do it, everyone was like, wow, it was surprising at that moment. But I guess if you look at everything that he said and even things that he said in his speech, it's fitting. And I'm more concerned, not necessarily where he puts his hand, but I'm concerned where he puts his thumb on so many policies. And even today, I mean, Nick, the fact that he rescinded all of those executive orders, dating from the day that the federal charges came against Eric Adams. And also, his whole thing was the Palestinians who've been discriminated and targeted. And I don't believe in anybody being targeted. I mean, I don't, condone that whatsoever. But I seem to miss the parts of his speech where he talked about anti-Semitism. I missed the parts of his speech where he talked about supporting the police. Somehow those things weren't in there, Nick, and that's troubling, right?
Well, yes, and also the most troubling thing that I heard was him saying that he's going to move Palestinians into the apartments that he frees up for low-income apartments. That's what it sounded like to me, that he's going to bring people in from Palestine, from the Middle East that aren't even Americans, and bring them in here and load them up into New York City.
Yeah, I took it as people from the community here already, but who knows? Who knows? I mean, Nick, the other thing, he totally obviously went after ICE, so he very well may want to bring some people from there to here. Based on his speech, I wouldn't put anything past this guy. And it is troubling, Nick. It is, and we've got to really keep an eye. It is shocking that here we are, 2026, and look at what's ahead for New York City with this guy. I think a lot of people, I always thought he was a true believer. There are some people today who are saying, Rita, you were right. And sadly, I hate to say it, I was, Nick, and I wish I wasn't. I was hoping maybe some of it was bluster. Maybe some of it was not his beliefs. I always believed that wasn't the case. I always believed that this guy was going to double and triple down. Well, today he quadrupled down. And that's not a good thing. Nick, pray for New York, will you, please?
Yes, I will. I will. Every day, Rita. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we're going to continue your calls, everybody, after the break. 1-800-848-9222.
It's the Rita Cosby Show. The Rita Cosby Show. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Rita Cosby Show Weekend Review. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Definitely appropriate for the times. Let's go to Timothy in Brooklyn, line 2. Timothy, your thoughts today?
Happy New Year, Miss Rita. This is Timothy from Brooklyn, a.k.a. Renaissance Man.
Hey, love that, Timothy. Thank you. Happy New Year. You made my day. Thank you.
Ma'am, I listen to you and Mr. Catsimatidis every day, morning, noon, and night, and even on the weekend. So I'm going to get to the point. The point is, like I was just telling your producer, number one, as an old school Afro-American man of tradition, we are not going to allow our American traditions to go down the tubes. Number two, why can't he take care of our veterans and our homeless first before the ego of Palestinians and quote unquote his friends?
You know what? That's a very good point, Timothy, because I didn't hear him say, we're going to take care of our veterans. That would have been a nice thing to say, especially on a very cold day in New York. Everything was Islamophobia, Palestinians, and thank goodness for the Democrat Socialists of America. As I said, buckle up.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.